Hello everyone. Today's poem is Wei Feng, 十亩之间, Wei Wind from the Book of Songs. The normal interpretation to this poem is a blaming poem. So this poem describes that the Wei state is a place of narrow, so the people don't have too much land or space to go around. So they lived a very humble and a limited life. The limitation came from the space. Everybody has limited land and farming field. So this is also the title 十亩之间. Mu is a, a area, a unit of area. So in the even today, in China, we also measure the farming fields by the unit of mu. So normally we believe in that time an average family would have 100 mu of land. But this poem claims that something of 10 mu is quite limited uh, land, right? So that's why the people why people think this poem is talking something humble, and the people lived in a very limited uh, land. Well, I do believe this poem is about a funeral, and the 10 mu of land refers to the uh, palace of the state lord. So, in general, actually nobody or no evidence tell us what is something what it is of something with 10 mu of land. But in the uh, history book, we know that an average family has 5 mu or for their houses. So a bigger house or a palace with 10 mu very likely is the state lord, or at least a senior officer's house. And also another term, Sang者, the people who handle the mulberry trees, or by the uh, phonetic uh, loans. Sang者means the the people whose family was has dead people. Or the Sangja could refer to the person who just passed away before the funeral. So in both ways, but anyhow, in general speaking, Sangja refers the people or the people involved in a funeral. Another evidence why this poem is a poem about a funeral is because of the two paragraph structure. So the two paragraph structure is about something abnormal. So most of the two paragraph structured poems in Shi Jing, in the Book of Songs, is about the funeral or a ceremony to their ancestors. The third reason is when we look up the poem in the traditional characters, in the version of traditional characters, there are two characters that revealing. The first is Jian. So in the simplified version, the radical in the center is the sun, right? It's telling something. The sun is in in the door, or you look through the door and you see the sun. So it telling the sun was in the middle of the door, right? So normally it referring to the noontime. But in the traditional version, it's not the sun, it's a moon. So this telling us it's happened. It's still the same place, but the time in the nighttime. And also uh, a building with a door is something important. So if you have some knowledge on the Chinese character, with the radical of the door, like this way, the radical of the door, it's always referring some the important places like the palace, the ancestor temples, sort of things. It never referring to a average family store, right? So here, with the first sentence, we are quite clear that it's telling something happened within the palace of a state lord or the ancestor temple, right? And it happened in the nighttime. So what exactly happened? Let's continue to see the next words. 桑者闲闲兮. So the people in the funeral, either the referring to the passed away person or either referring to the people who are participate in this funeral. 闲闲兮. So you can see it's quite similar to the previous word. 间. Something happened within the palace, within the ancestor temple, right? And the radical in the center is mu. It means the wood in modern Chinese. But if we look at the traditional version, the line, horizon line, refers to the horizon, the land, horizon of the land, actually. And the three line go upward, referring to the sacrifice, the prey go to above the horizon to the heaven, and the three line go downward, also referring to the prey, the sacrifice downward. So what kind of a situation this kind of prey could happen? Prey go to upward, downward happen in the same time. It only happens to a passed away person or to the ancestors, because the ancient Chinese believe that a human has two type of spirits, 魂 and 魄. So if the person was alive, the two spirits resides within the body, the both 魂 and 魄. But when the person passed away, died, the 魂 get out of the body, will floating there or go beyond to the heaven. But the poor will still stay with the body, with the corpse, even when the corpse was buried in the cemetery. So, which means the spirit was separate in two parts. One part was floating there or somewhere in the sky. Another part was down in the earth in the tomb. So, if you have a ceremonial sacrifice to your ancestors or to a dead people, you should uh, offer the sacrifice two different of type of things, either upward as well as downward. Your prey goes to upward as well as downward. You should serve both spirits of the dead, right? So here, the xian, so nobody will tell you that xian should be interpreted as this. Xian means a sacrifice to the dead people to the ancestors, either upward as well as downward. So 桑者闲闲兮 here is telling us very clearly it's a funeral. It's not necessary to be a funeral. It could be a ceremony to their ancestors, right? But either it's for the passed away person or it's a ceremony to the ancestors. 行与子还兮, so they go around and they finally come back with the Lord. 子 normally referring to the state Lord. So 行与子还兮 referring that the poet himself finally come back with the state Lord. And here it's very likely a dead person. We will see in the second paragraph. The second paragraph. 十亩之外兮，桑者泄泄兮. So at outside of the 10 mu of land, outside of this ancestral temple, the palace. Okay, one more thing. The palace of the state lord as well as the ancestral temple, they are actually is the same complex, the building complex. So here, outside of the palace, outside of the ancestral temple, the people in the funeral, they are floating like the river and they are replacing. 世 refers to the generations. If you look at the very original form, you can see that it's a branch of a tree and there are several fruits in different branches, right? So from the same root, they are belonged to the same generations, right? And so here, the character here should be is a one character has a very abundant meanings. That first thing first, it refers to the generations, and also with the river flooding, referring the generations is like the rivers. It flows one generation by generation, right? And this meaning coincide with the last sentence. 行与子逝兮. So we are on our way, we are walking, we are going, and finally we disappeared with the Lord. 逝 means go away and get lost. So the last sentence means the poet and the state lord finally they go away from their palace and finally they vanished. What does it mean? They are on their way to the cemetery. And more importantly, it's a metaphor that the state lord, will never come back. He will disappear. So I believe from all these aspects, 子 here in this poem first thing first, he refers to the state lord of the Wei state, and it's the funeral of this Wei state lord. So the takeaway from this poem has two things. One is the idiom, 十亩, the land of 10亩, right? It referring to the palace of the state lord. The other takeaway is the two characters, 间 and 闲. So in the later generations after the Qin dynasty, these characters they have a quite unclear meaning. But in the time in the Book of Psalms, it's quite clear. It refers in the middle, right? And very likely either in the noontime or in the midnight time, when the sun or the moon are in the center of the sky, and you can look to the moon or to the sky through the door, right? And in modern language, they just have one simple meaning, something in the middle, and has nothing associated with the time. But if we look at the text in the Shi Jing's time, we should be careful. You should check if it's a sun in the middle or it's a moon in the middle. So they are referring to the different time. Another is xian. So xian today in the modern language means a leisurement, so idle. So it has a lot of time, has nothing to do. But in the that time, xian means the ceremony to the ancestors, to a dead people. So they sacrifice either to their hun in the sky, as well as to their poor, which was buried in the cemetery with their corpse. Okay, that's for today. Bye bye.